Have you ever wondered what would happen to those who've never heard the name Jesus? What about those people who have died? Maybe you have a friend or a family member who doesn't believe in Jesus, or maybe they've even passed away professing not to have believed in him. Well, what does this mean then? Does this mean they're in hell? Well, let's take a closer look. Let's address this question in 4 points. Point number 1. There are many people in the Bible that have never heard the name Jesus that are in heaven. That's right, there are. For example, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and how about Rahab, the Gentile prostitute? They're all in heaven. Don't believe me? Read Hebrews chapter 11. Point number 2. For point number 2, I'd like to tell a story of a friend. And of course, for the purposes of this video, I'll leave the names anonymous. Let's just say I had a friend named Peter. And Peter had a grandmother whom he loved dearly. His grandmother never believed in Jesus and would tell him all the time. Now one day she got really sick and she passed away. And so Peter said, well, if my grandmother is not in heaven, there's no motivation for me to go there either. Now I regret to say that Peter has since passed away as well. And about a few weeks after he passed away, his family members went into his attic where he kept a lot of his belongings. And in one particular box they found a letter. It was closed, it was sealed, but it had his name on it. So when they opened it up, they found that it was a letter from his grandmother addressed to Peter. And in that note, here's what she said. I believe with all my heart in Jesus and that he loves me and that one day when I pass, I will be with him in heaven. Peter, you're the only one who's been with me this whole time, who's supported me. You're the only one who's loved me. And I hope one day you'll find Jesus as well so we can be together in heaven. Well, what's the lesson learned here? We should never assume that we know what someone believes internally, no matter what they say. Only God knows their heart. You know, I pray that Peter too had silently believed in Jesus before he died. And for the third point, I want you to consider an analogy. Consider this. Assume you had a family member in jail and you were a free person. Now, let's say you wanted to visit that family member in jail. Do you think that if you discussed it with the warden, that he could potentially let you in to visit your family member in jail? Pretty good chance, I'd say. But what if you and your family member that you loved were both in jail and you were in separate cells in isolation? Do you think if you asked the warden to let you out so that you can go join your family member in a specific prison, he would just say, sure, go ahead? Probably not. Well, I'd like you to think of heaven the same way. Now, this is not biblical, so before you go off screaming, what a heretic, just take a deep breath. This is just an analogy. The point is, God's the warden of heaven, and he knows your heart. Nobody's getting ripped off. God's not a fool. He knows exactly what he's doing. He loves you, and he knows your concerns, and he knows about your loved ones. He's your father. I think we need to stop making him out to be an evil dictator. He will take care of you. And finally, the fourth and final point. You know, as humans, we always pray for the present situations in our lives as well as future situations. But as humans, we also always forget that God is outside of time. So he knows, for example, that you were going to pray today even 1,000 years ago. What does this mean? I think we lose sight as humans because we don't know the future and that's all we can focus on. So if you've lost someone you love and care about and you're unsure about their salvation, why don't you try praying something like this? Dear Lord, I know you're the creator of heaven and earth, and I know you love me. But Lord, I'm a little worried that one of my family members has passed without believing in Jesus. And Lord, I know that you operate outside of time. So I am here asking you, Lord, today, that while my family member who passed was still on this planet, that you somehow brought them the message of Jesus and that they heard and that they believed. I pray this to you, Lord, because I know you are the living God and you've heard me since the beginning of time. And I pray, Lord, that you would hear my words as I have heard your words. Amen. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe. Please turn on your notifications and please don't forget to share.